You saw the way Mandela looked like a black Chinese man? Yes. That's where all Asians come from. The San people, who are the oldest people on the planet, from South Africa.
So that means we're part black.
Yeah!
And yes, during this time, there were actually more Chinese slaves in China than any other demographic. However, some of the wealthy class people saw these African darker-skinned slaves as more exotic and less common.
How was I supposed to know? I just made an astute observation, and then I just vocalized it, not thinking obviously anybody was gonna see it, that everybody saw it. But I really do appreciate everybody who's in the comments.
Malaysia, Indonesia, and then Philippines. And some of the tribe who inhabited Australia, Indonesia, China, and possibly India found their way to the Philippines.
So Asian people are finding out for the first ever time that they are blacks. They came from Africa. Their ancestors are Africans. Some of them are so happy and they are sharing their experiences. And some of them too already know, and they are giving us more details on how all these things came about. I don't want to talk much. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. You don't lose anything by just giving the video a thumbs up. Comment whatever you think. Share and also subscribe. Let's go into the video.
Am I the only kid in America that learned that we're all black? Like, I had a really cool teacher back in elementary school, and I can't believe I still remember this at 45 years of age. But he showed us a map and a theory that everybody came from Africa, that it was all one country. And one day there was like a natural disaster. I'm not sure if it was an earthquake or whatever, but then it split up into all these different continents that we see today. And of course, based off of where it split off, and if you're closer or further away from the equator, you're going to be a little bit more fair skin, or you're going to be a little bit more dark skin. And then the climate played a factor into why people look a certain way and how they develop certain features and whatnot to adapt to said climates. But originally the world was one big piece of land and we were all African. So when you say black folk are the original humans and creators of civilization worldwide and Asians are a variation of black people, yeah, I'm freaking black. And that's why I can make a mean mac and cheese that's 7 layers deep.
Yep, Asian people have always been African.
Hello, my friend. I noticed a range of strange statements you made in this video, so let's address them.
All human life, human. Human meaning color, people of color, okay, people of melanin.
By the out of Africa theory, all humans come from Africa, not just dark-skinned people, but all humans. That includes the populations of Europe. Even the Neanderthal or the Denisovan are believed to descend from populations that migrated out of Africa.
People should know that all African women, or what people call today black women, have the Eve gene. The Eve gene has the capability of reproducing any human being of any color, of any race.
This is what happens when you get your information from Facebook. You have a complete misunderstanding of what the Eve gene is. The Eve gene refers to mitochondrial DNA, which is passed down from mother to children. Now, if we were to trace back everybody's mitochondrial DNA, we can reach a single individual that lived over 100,000 years ago. Now, this supposed single individual that lived over 100,000 years ago is nicknamed mitochondrial Eve, hence the term Eve gene. Humans have developed different physical characteristics to adapt to different environments, as such characteristics are acquired through genetic mutations which have occurred over long periods of time. For example, the development of lighter skin is a mutation that helps adapt to low sunlight environments. Your ability to produce a child with a phenotype of a different ethnicity or race has nothing to do with what mtDNA haplogroup you're a part of. It's more so to do with who you choose to mate with. Now, if you're going to say that Asians and Africans are closely related based on these ancient migrations, then you have to apply that to all humans. You can't just exclusively group the people of Asia and Africa together. I definitely agree with parts of your video talking about how race is a social construct. But using this fake Facebook science to prove such things is only damaging your own argument.
I'm just using this comment to reply, but what I'm about to say has nothing to do with this comment. I don't like the way that y'all are acting like this is common knowledge. How was I supposed to know? How was I supposed to know? I just made an astute observation and then I just vocalized it, not thinking obviously anybody was gonna see it, that everybody saw it. But I really do appreciate everybody who's in the comments, like giving out facts and information and telling me to look certain stuff up. I really appreciate it. I feel like I've learned a lot today. So thank you guys so much.
Because the so-called black people are never listened to when talking about their own heritage. And yes, I say so-called black people because that is a political title that was forced upon them. But what the white man did was try to take the Asian and make them the new hybrid race of white people. Unfortunately, they did this mostly against our will, with a lot of lies and destabilization to our home country, and largely by force. So certain Asian women have woken up to the fact that just because we're paler doesn't mean we're white, and we don't actually experience any sort of white privilege like other people want to say we do. Mainstream media has put us in a place where our proximity to whiteness is like this, not by our choice either. Even though yes, there are some Asians that play into their proximity to whiteness and use that for their advantage. So those of us that woke up are using our proximity to whiteness, our voices, and the way that they literally taught us to speak white as a way to communicate to the rest of people who will not listen to the dark-skinned, melanated, indigenous people of this land. And yes, while this does create division between our communities still, because why am I getting views for something that they have been saying for years, decades, centuries? Why are Asians the one that get listened to? Well, that ties back to proximity to whiteness as well. We didn't choose our proximity to whiteness, and very few of us choose to weaponize it against the white man and his colonial systems. Not enough of us choose to use our proximity to whiteness for something good. But as a literal product of colonialism, I can't find it in my heart to continue performing the model minority for people who will never acknowledge me as a human being. To answer your question. Sorry, I got a little carried away there.
How did you all get so light? Where is the color? Where are the dark-skinned people from your region? Over there. So in the Philippines, we have very complicated past. The first people who inhabited Philippines are black people. During the Ice Age, a lot of people from Africa migrated all over Asia. Many of them went to China, India, Australia, Malaysia, Indonesia, and then Philippines. And some of the tribe who inhabited Australia, Indonesia, China, and possibly India found their way to the Philippines. And there was a time that Europeans traveled across the globe, and many countries were colonized by Europeans. We're talking about Canada, America, Australia, and many parts in Asia. So, Philippines were colonized by Spaniards. Back in the day, Spaniards forced many Filipinos to change their last name because apparently their last name is ugly. And hence why there are many Filipinos have Spanish last names. And also many Filipinos were forced to change their belief into Catholic. Hence why there are over 90% of Catholic people in the Philippines. If you refuse to change your religion, you will be and the only tribe who did not get forced to change their belief are the Igorot tribes because they fought the Spaniards and Spaniards were defeated. And also there was a time that Spaniards eliminated a lot of Filipino. There was a time that Japanese, Americans, and Chinese took over the Philippines. And that is why many Filipinos have many different skin tones. Because many Filipinos were married to Spanish or Mexicans, Chinese, Japanese, and Americans. Now, if you visit provinces in the Philippines, you will see a lot of dark-skinned Filipinos. Now, if we're talking about the original people of the Philippines, which we call them Aitas or Itas or Negritos, they are mostly in the mountains. Back in the day, they used to hide and live in the mountain because there were many people in the Philippines who were hunting them. And because they are the most hated and experience a lot of discriminations in the Philippines, they choose to live in the mountain. And the reason why you will see a lot of Filipinos who have whiter skin or fair skin, many of them use whitening product to whiten their skin because many of them were bullied of having dark skin. And some of them, they hate having dark skin, and that's the reason why they force themselves to use whitening products. If you have dark skin in the Philippines and if you are born unfortunate, you are more likely to get treated badly and get bullied. Sometimes in the Philippines, it doesn't really matter if you have white skin or dark skin. If you are rich, people will more likely to bow down to you and respect to you. So really, it's all about money, not necessarily having dark skin. But if you have white skin, you're more likely get treated fairly and more likely the people will respect to you and value you. So how many Filipinos do you think get bullied every day for having dark skin? And mind you, most people in the Philippines have dark skin. So how did I get so light? Well, I was born having fair skin. However, if I am exposed to the sun, my true color comes out. My skin will become so dark when I'm exposed to the sun. And during the summertime, you're more likely see a lot of Filipino wearing a sweater or use umbrella because they are scared of getting dark. If they will get dark, they will hate themselves and they are afraid of getting bullied. And as for me, I am proud that my true color comes out when I'm exposed to the sun because I am proud that I am part negrito.
Okay, so story time. See if I can explain this correctly because a lot of people are asking me if I'm adopted. The funny thing is I'm not adopted. This is my dad. This is Eugene. He is my dad. He is not my adopted father. And this is my mom. No, hold on. Let me go back. He is my dad, but not my biological father. Go figure. That's my mom. Isn't she beautiful? Oh, I love her so much. And these are my sisters. Okay. And then there's me. Okay. A lot of people think, okay, you look at your sisters, you look at you look at your dad. How are you not adopted? Well, let me tell you a little story. Back in 1988, my mom met my biological father from previous videos, if you go back and look, and I was a product of their love for a very short time. And my mom had me, okay, and my dad wanted to keep me. So on my birth certificate, he is my father. He's my dad. It's been that way ever since the beginning. Okay, so to continue on, basically, these are my half-sisters. But for 17 years of my life, my parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, everybody had made me believe that I was half black, which if someone tells you that you are something from the time that you're developing your own personality and identity, then you're definitely going to believe it. And so I always just believed it. I'm half black, half Korean. And sure enough, when I was 17, I found out in a tragic way, that would be for another video if you guys want to know, of how I found out that my dad was not my biological father. Okay. And that's when I was 17 years old. I took it quite well. And then come to find out, through that process, my mom told me about my biological father and my biological siblings, half siblings, which makes me kind of an only child because these two sisters, they are older than me and they are half. We look identical in some sense. They are half siblings. They are older than me. I am full-blooded of my mom and biological father. And then I have those three other siblings, there might be more, who are younger than me from my biological father and his wife. So I'm kind of like a middle child, but I'm also the oldest, but I'm also the youngest. It's really weird. But anyways, thanks for watching.
This video explains historical patterns and context and not any one specific group or individual's intent, and accountability and understanding can exist at the same time. I want to explain why anti-blackness exists in the Asian community. And no, I am not excusing racism. And no, I am not saying that all Asian people are anti-black. I just want to explain where it originates from, because you cannot dismantle something if you don't understand its roots. Anti-blackness in Asian communities didn't just pop up out of nowhere, and it definitely was not created by Black people. Anti-blackness is systemic. Anti-blackness is a global system that was created by the white supremacy and European colonialism. So Asian societies didn't invent it, but it was absorbed through colonization, Western education, media, and global power structures. So colonial powers developed, taught, and preached this racial hierarchy of whiteness at the top and blackness at the bottom. And these ideas were taught through schools, media, religion, and law, and many Asian countries absorbed it and retained it even after colonization ended. So colorism already existed in Asian countries. That was a pre-existing issue, pre-colonialism. Colonialism intensified it and took it to a completely new level. So lighter skin became associated with all these positive traits like beauty, intelligence, safety, success, and wealth, while darker skin became associated with criminality, labor, poverty, just general inferiority. And the pre-existing framework of colorism made these Asian societies very susceptible to accepting and internalizing anti-blackness. A lot of Asian societies learned that proximity to whiteness is a survival tactic. In a white-dominated global system, a lot of Asian societies accepted that proximity to whiteness meant opportunities, safety, and success. And I am in no way saying that this is morally right, but distancing themselves from blackness was a survival tactic. I want to heavily emphasize that it is not right, but it was historically conditioned in many Asian societies. So many Asian societies' first introduction to the Black community, the exposure to blackness, right, came from Western media. So when media portrays blackness in the light of criminality, poverty, and stereotypes, Asian people just internalized it because the Western media wasn't portraying Black people with humanity. And there's an aspect of silence, right? In a lot of Asian cultures, we don't speak about things. Some Asian cultures avoid confrontation to keep the peace. And that silence allows anti-blackness to go unchecked, even when it's harmful. So again, understanding anti-blackness does not excuse it. Asian communities still have a responsibility to unlearn the systemic learned anti-blackness, challenge it, and stand in solidarity. So anti-blackness is not something that was inherently within our culture. It was taught, again, through colonialism, the Western influence. And I want to keep emphasizing that what's taught can be unlearned. I love the belief that solidarity truly starts when we stop protecting the systems that perpetuate the harm, even when the system is something that benefits us.
Yeah. Chinese just came out last month. One of the top geneticists in China, who now stated that their first ancestor in China was an African, and every Chinese carries the DNA. The East Indians have already done this. Mexicans have done it. So you mean to tell me the people in the diaspora who look the most like the African American, you have nothing to do with Africa genetically. It's ridiculous. But we have to look at the mentality behind that. Yeah. Nobody wants to be on a losing team. True. And until African people start winning globally, nobody wants to be a part of us. Yeah. This is why you have Spanish speaking Africans in the Caribbean who will call themselves Latino or Hispanic. They're Africans, but who wants to be part of a losing team? It's just like when you go throughout Africa, it's not, I still run across Africans who will tell you I'm French, I'm British. You understand? Because nobody wants to be part of a losing team. Yeah. But the minute African people get our situation back in order, everybody who don't want to be Black will proudly return to the race. We have to give them something to be proud of. The Honorable Marcus Garvey said, The white man has made being black a curse. I'm going to make being black a blessing. He said we have to sell being African back to the African.
You Chinese? I literally thought you were a light-skinned black dude or maybe mixed. And recently, there's a lot of emerging science showing that the original Chinese people may have been black. You can see signs of this if you look at our most ancient artworks, as well as old photographs. And it makes sense when you realize that our continents were once joined and people used to wander freely between them.
What? And honestly, I wasn't even going to say anything until I saw this and was like, what? And then I saw the comments and saw that people actually think this is real and thanking you for learning for the day. What? All right, but realistically, let's break this down piece by piece with actual facts, science, and statistics. Okay, let's start off with evolution. It took millions of years for us to evolve into humans. And even within species, it takes thousands of years for significant changes to happen in evolution. And then he stated that we should look at the drawings and photographs of Chinese people to see the evidence. Well, the problem with that is cameras were invented in 1816, so just barely over 200 years ago. And remember, evolution takes thousands of years, which means that we wouldn't be able to see any evidence of evolution from photographs because cameras were only invented 200 years ago. So these photos that I'm pretty sure he's alluding to doesn't really prove that Chinese people came from black origin. And the paintings that I'm pretty sure he's talking about that predates photographs and cameras are ones like this. As you can see, there's Chinese written on the side here. But this image is actually a cleaned up, isolated image of this painting that, as you can see, is extremely damaged from age. And this is actually from a different painting, but if you zoom out, as you can see, this is from the same time period. Along with this black Chinese person, there are actually non-black Chinese people as well, which proves that we couldn't have had black and non-black Chinese people at the same time if we were evolving from one into the other. So what's the explanation for images like this or photos like this? And it's been documented that Africa has had a commercial relationship with China as early as the 7th century, so just a little over 2,000 years ago. And it's also well documented that during the Tang Dynasty, which is from roughly about 1618 to 907 AD, so just a little over 1,000 to about 1,400 years ago, Middle Eastern traders brought African slaves from Africa to China, and they were referred to as kunlins. And yes, during this time, there were actually more Chinese slaves in China than any other demographic. However, some of the wealthy class people saw these African darker-skinned slaves as more exotic and less common. That's why even in this image, you see the black person doing work while the non-black Chinese people are just sitting there enjoying themselves. Or in this image, the black person, again, note the non-black Chinese people, the black person is the only person who seems to be tied up. And it kept going on for hundreds of years. And something peculiar started to happen during that time because only the super wealthy had black slaves, so the majority of Chinese people had never seen a black person before. So this idea of a kunlin started to really take off in a mythology type of standpoint. And folklore about the kunlin started to view them as supernatural human beings. And during this time, because the majority of people had never seen one before, they also started to spread the idea that they were also ethnically Chinese. Here's one of those stories about the folklore about kunlins written during that time about 1,200 years ago called Kunlin Nu. And in this story, a wealthy Chinese man enlists the help of his black slave to break out the love of his life who's been taken to be wed to someone else. And in that story, that black man is able to jump over large walls with his master and his love on his back. And in that story, that man is also somehow immortal. And that story explains that he had to become a slave because of obligations from a past life. Almost as if it's pushing this narrative of, don't worry if you put them to work really hard, they're very naturally strong and they live forever anyway. Not to mention, they're slaves because they were probably shitty in a previous life and they deserve it. Next, let's address the claim that he made that all these new studies are coming out that prove that the first Chinese people were black. And I'm pretty sure he's referencing the study that was mentioned in this article from 1998, where it goes on to state that in 1998, around the time where DNA was just starting to be understood, that the vast majority of Chinese people used to think that they didn't evolve from Homo erectus like the rest of us did, and that Chinese people came from their own lineage. which actually included a study by a Chinese man named Jin Li, who actually tried to prove that Chinese people descended from their own lineage that dates back to Chinese originality and not from the Homo erectus like the rest of us. And in his study using DNA, he actually proved the other side, realizing that everyone descended from the Homo erectus. And yes, this article was titled this way because back in 1998 when it was written, the majority of Chinese people didn't believe that they evolved from the Homo erectus in Africa like everyone else. As evidenced by this last paragraph in that exact article, though they titled the articles to be like, yes, Chinese people descended from Africa as well, like everyone else. So in short, yes, the original Chinese people were from Africa because the original person was from Africa along with everyone else, which is why racism is stupid and a social construct, because our skin color, our hair texture, and our eyes are literally how we evolved over thousands of years based on our geographical location and the intensity of the sun. That's it. But no, the original Chinese people weren't black in the way that it was presented in this video by this guy. So please stop spreading misinformation because you read a headline, made horribly incorrect conclusions, and then decided to make a video about it.
For you to say the first Chinese may have been black, you just erased your own people and history and gave the Wabos the history. You have no honor. So first of all, I just had to Google Wabo, and it means wannabe aboriginals. Make of that what you will. So this guy's upset because I talked about the research findings of Professor Jin Li of Shanghai's Fudan University, indicating that there is ancient black ancestry among the Chinese people. This professor talks about ancient migration patterns between Africa and Asia dating back some 60,000 years. And you can even see the likeness today when you compare the features of Chinese people and the Khoisan people of South Africa. I think it's sad that you feel I have no honor and that I've erased the history of my people in talking about this. The way I see it, we're mostly all taught one version of history, but that learning should never stop and we should always be open to new information. And when we explore new information, I don't think it erases anything, it just adds to the richness of our history. And surely, if we learn that we might be more closely connected than we realized, that must be a good thing, not a bad thing, right?
So it's easier to talk about white people and how, there's so much evidence that shows that they were engineered, right? With the cloning, with the, the orphan trains, the whole Cabbage Patch Kids thing, like all of these things, their DNA, the fact that their melanin was reduced, the fact that they have the same uniform traits, specific genome editings universally. But then we always speak about the white people. But then where I loop around is the Asians, right? Because what about the Asians? Because the Asians, they say that the original Asians were African. And you can tell by that because there's African indigenous populations within Asia, right? So, but my thing is, so where did that the Ida genes, that dead straight black hair, coarse hair come from with the shovel teeth? And like, where did those features, where did that uniformity that sweeps across East Asia, the paler skin, where does that come from? Because it swept, because remember, it's a uniform, it went, right? So we're always talking, and that's what confuses me because they're older, right? The Asians or whatever, like, they seem to be older, right? They seem older than the white people, right? Not the black people, but the white people. So how many resets was there? Right? Because we know that Asians got even paler with the supposed Aryan invasion and all of that stuff. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? The North Indians or whatever, that's what they got paler, etc., etc. They got them genes or whatever, blah, blah. But what about because remember, they've got dead straight hair from China, Japan, India, all of those, the Philippines, all of them people there weren't the indigenous populations. And you can tell by that because when you go into their ancient temples and all of this stuff, you can see
Afro features, etc., etc. The founding populations, even when you go look into their history and all of this stuff, like there's actually loads of books and information about this, right? But this is what confuses me the most. So it's either there was multiple resets, right? But I feel like because obviously whatever goes on with the Asians as well, with Arabs we already know, because Arabs are literally just a mixture. Arabs are literally mixed race people. Because Arabs are a mixture of everything, African, Asian, and Caucasian, right? So that's why with Arabs, it's not really a thing like that to research, like, oh, what about the Arabs? Because they're a mixture of everything. So when we figure out what happened in Eurasia,
You know, for the first ever time, they are discovering something like this, and some of them too already know, and they have even given us more details to this. I really like the in-depth knowledge some of them gave, because listen, Africa is the cradle. Africa is the cradle of what's human beings or mankind. So if you think you are not black and you are hating on black people, that time will come, the right time will come, and you will be shocked and you'll be surprised and you'll be ashamed to hate yourself as a human being, as an Asian, as European, as whoever. You see, I don't know why Africans and black people are hated all over the world like this. I don't know what exactly we did. And for me, I think it is just fear and also insecurities, because honestly, why would you even hate someone who doesn't even wield any gun? We don't have any missiles. We have nothing. All we are doing is just to exist, and people will just hate on us for no reason. There is something they know that we don't know, especially the white people. I all the time say this, because what have we done? What have we done? By nature or God creating us as black people, and you are hating on us for what reason? This is something that probably you are insecure about or you are afraid of, and that is making you hate on us and just trying to look down upon us. But whatever you do, the history is there, the research is there. Listen, Africans, black people are the original people, and the whole world, everybody knows that. Even Jesus is black. You know, definitely God is not going to create Jesus in an artificial or synthetic being. God is definitely going to create Jesus in the original being, and that is black. So please, thank you so much for watching.